So, welcome everybody to another episode. This week I am, as you know, some of you know if you've been listening to these podcasts regularly, and I know there's a few of you, so thank you for listening regularly. I've been doing a whole series about relationships, because it's a massive part of any coach's work, I think, and just fucking life, really, because everything is about connection and relationships. And today I've asked probably. I don't even have the words, Tania. I don't have the words to describe this human being. She's my bestie. She's just amazing fucking coach. She's just amazing at everything she does. She's an absolute, unicorns are unique. You are the uniquest of unicorns. So everybody, drum roll, welcome. Tania fucking Nishi, welcome.
Yay!
Repping it starts with you, hoodie. Thank you for that.
It starts with you.
Starts with you. So I did obviously it's very difficult. What do you want to introduce yourself in like a more professional way rather than the way that I've done it?
A more professional way. I don't think there'd be a more professional way. So yeah, I am the naked coach, which I do love. I love the way you're the real life coach and I'm the naked coach. It's just
I know.
together we are amazing.
Real nakedness.
Real naked, yes. Real naked conversation today.
Yeah.
And essentially, I do a multitude of things, but the thing that I'm most passionate about is self-love and how that then impacts and ripples out into community love and self-compassion and self-trust, how that then means that we can turn our lens outwardly and look at the world through the lens of love. Because I do think that that then shifts our relationship with everything. Once we shift the relationship with ourselves, then it ultimately completely changes how we operate within the world and how we treat others. And ultimately, as a Buddhist in my heart, community care and us looking after each other as beings in this world is really important to me. So the paradox being that I am a coach and I have, another business with my husband where we help people with their businesses, but the passion that comes from inside me always comes back to the self and self-love and us having that trust and compassion. So I help people work through that. And it's key to everything. Like you said, it's key to relationships, it's key to business, it's key to kind of our own operations within our families and our friendships. And it's basically at the core of everything. So I do say that I am just one of many doing this amazing work. And for me, the most important thing is that people do this work. So I'm so grateful for you to have you in my life and others around me who preach very similar things, which is all about looking after the self. And ultimately, then that's how then we go out and look after others. Because I think sometimes it gets a bit skewed, doesn't it? Everyone's about self at the moment. And actually, that's not what I'm about. I'm about the self so that you then go out and serve others and can be a better person in community.
Yeah, and I think that's why how we connected and why we do connect and why we've done some bits together, but we're probably going to do a whole lot more going forward because we preach the same kind of thing, but in a different way. But the outcome is we want the same outcome basically for all. And I wrote something yesterday about love and love for all, love, we come from love, so it's learning to love ourselves because we ultimately this is we come from love, we are love, and if we can connect with that and engage with that on a deeper level, then surely we then you have an outpouring of that goes out into other people. And that's the bit for me, like if I can work on the love for myself, then I can, and I love helping people so much. So for me it's like you could just go, oh no, forget about me because I desperately want to help so many other people. But if you want to have a meaningful impact with other people and community, then you have to do the work of self in order to give the best and to be the best and it to have this massive ripple effect. So I guess that's why we connected. But I've already named this episode The Greatest Love because you are a shining example and probably the biggest shining example of self-love and what that means, and for a human being to love themselves unequivocally, without condition, without anything. I honestly don't know anyone else that does that as well as you do that, which is why I wanted you to come on here separately. Normally is us three, me, you, and Diana. And actually, incidentally, part two of The Greatest Love will be Diana.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do this separately with you guys because you are such great examples. But, I have to say, you are the greatest example of that. And I talked, if I talk to other people and friends, I'll mention you. It's like if you want to know about self-love and what that truly looks like to love yourself unequivocally, can't even say that fucking word, then you need to meet my friend Tania Nishi. So
I just want you to say the word again.
well, unequivocally.
That's probably my favorite thing to say now.
Yeah, unequivocally. Um, so I guess where where does that start for you, right? Because we know, we just said at the top of the episode that in order to have better relationships in your family, your community, your work, you have to have this relationship with yourself. You have to, for me, it's a daily thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have to work on the relationship with myself, and I know I can get a little bit funky, a bit meh, and that's why I've always worked on it. That's why I've always done self-development, because I've needed it. And therefore then you spread that out, right? You learn what you learn and educate yourself, what you need for yourself, you then share with other people, because you realize, oh, this fucking works, this is changing my life, I now want to tell every other motherfucker about it. Do you know what I mean? That's what you do, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Is that a similar thing for you, or being a Buddhist, and I know you've been a Buddhist, like Buddhism has been part of your whole life,
Yes.
was it something that just is innate because you were brought up in a certain way, or is it something you developed because you recognize that actually I need this for myself, and therefore then I can help more other people? How did it kind of come about?
So I love this question, and I find probably this being one of the hardest questions to answer. I love the fact that if you ever watch this in video form, I look like Casper at the moment because the sun has just come out and messed with my whole lighting in my room. But I actually feel like it's symbolism of the fact that this really does make me glow. Like this is part of like my makeup. It's part of my blood. And I say the same thing about Buddhism, and I say the same thing about, yeah, like love. Like this, it kind of runs through every part of me. And every time I'm asked this question, I reflect and I think, was it the fact that I was raised Buddhist since I was a kid and always had this message to, taught to me about helping others, doing for others, and actually less so therefore looking after self. It was interesting, the Buddhist practice that I perform is about like, trying to better ourselves so we can go out in community. But then when I remember looking around me, and I, that isn't everything that I was grew up with. So I
Mm,
had various different influences from, my family, both, different cultures, being Japanese and Portuguese, raised in London, which is kind of a beautiful cosmopolitan place. So I do think it's obviously a combination, as with everyone else, of lots of different things.
mm,
Definitely know it was something that I had to make a choice to actively work on. So even though I had those kind of core foundational beliefs and kind of the heart of a Buddhist, that Buddha nature I was very aware of, in terms of how that functioned in a society that is ultimately conditioning me to want to buy their makeup and buy their razors and buy the latest fashion tip, and being judged by my size and the way I looked and the color of my skin and my sexuality and all of that sort of stuff.
mm,
I realized, like, holy shit, like just having these kind of beautiful core foundations isn't enough. And
mm,
that's why I do exactly like you said, Sam. I preach that you must fall in love with yourself every single day. This has to be a daily practice, that you make the active choice to be kind of love, to embody love every
mm,
single day. So ultimately, it wasn't until probably my 20s where I remember the day that I made a decision, particularly because I had such issues with my body. Um, being judged on my body, and therefore always
mm,
being told that my body wasn't right. Either it, wasn't the right size, it wasn't the right color, it, was far too hairy or whatnot. There was always some issue with my body, and ultimately, this is why I'm all about people having body autonomy and loving their body, because ultimately our body is everything. Our body is our brain, is our heart, is all our organs. So when people talk about the body, it's as though they want to separate it from the mind. And I fully believe there's mind, body, spirit. We do
Yeah.
understand how to treat them differently, but ultimately our body houses all of these things, right? So I think that's why I start with the body, the love of the body. And that's where my journey began. I remember standing in front of the mirror and just being like, holding on to my fat bits and just being like, every day I would look in the mirror and be like, I don't look right. Or I had a great personality. I mean, I've always loved myself in terms of, I've always had this kind of love of self, always
Yeah.
thinking I was too much, but still being okay with the too muchness, but understanding that that too muchness didn't fit in the box that society wanted it to. And then my body didn't fit in the box that society wanted it to, and then the way that I spoke didn't. And then you start to kind of have that self-hate talk, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember looking and thinking, like, if I could shake myself, which now I physically do to a lot of people,
Yeah.
including you and probably Diana,
Yeah. Yeah.
and be like, why are you being mean to, like, my friend? My husband, I remember, did this to me to kind of show me
Mm,
back to myself, like, why are you being mean to my wife? In a very loving way.
I know.
I am safe. My husband is lovely. Um,
He is.
that kind of very much of wake up. What? Hello. Why are we? The whole world is telling you something. Does that mean that then you have to reinforce it by telling it to yourself? The only place that we are safe, the only place that we can love ourselves unconditionally, and I ultimately believe the only people we can love unconditionally, like in the true meaning of what unconditional means, is ourselves, because
Mm,
we're the only people that we can truly know and trust. And I
yeah.
believe
I
that.
love that.
Yeah, I
Oh,
have children.
I remember that bit. That's so good. That bit you just said, like mic drop, like
Yeah, because
the only people we truly can know is ourselves,
yeah,
right?
the only
Absolutely.
100%, and therefore the only person that we can hold without condition is ourselves. So as much as I love the idea of unconditional love, and I love it in principle, it means that you love someone boundlessly and wildly and with
Mm.
unequivocally, right? But understanding that even with our own kids, even the parental relationship has certain conditions on it, right?
Yeah.
And everything has conditions in this world. Who we love, our partners, my husband, as much as I'd love to say in a love letter, I love you unconditionally to my husband, I know it still comes with conditions. And ultimately, his love for me does as well.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that I don't love him, so very much. But it's about understanding that in order, if I really truly believe that I can receive unconditional love from another, that has to start with me. That has to start with you, right?
Yes.
And that is ultimately why every day I choose to fall in love with myself, and why ultimately I do preach the fact that we are perfect. I think we are also taught not to use that word for ourselves.
Mm.
Like, there's a shame, there's a, you think you're too good for, you think you're too
Yeah.
good, and all of that. Like, and when I say it, it does, I mean, it triggers a lot of people when I say, like, I'm perfect. And I remember even on the last podcast recording that we did together as a throuple, and I mentioned it, I remember you Googling it, right? You were like, let me just go,
Oh yeah, we did.
perfect
Because
means,
it
right?
is triggering. Like even you said it the other day actually when we were talking, and uh, I think I was in the car because it went through my head again. Then it's like, well, how can we be perfect? Like, because I think a lot of people and anyone listening to this will struggle with that. Like, because we're conditioned that we're not perfect,
No,
right? That
no,
nothing is perfect,
no.
but
And that the
you
being,
see it very differently.
yeah, because in our being, we are perfect. Because when you Googled that word, when you saw it, it just means complete. It means whole. It
Mm,
means, kind of in oneness. And that's ultimately what, bubblegum spirituality at the moment is trying to preach to everyone, right? Everyone should be in peace and oneness and zen. And I know it kind of, again, is a bit of an oxymoron, me counteracting that, but it's understanding that you're doing it for the right principles. And ultimately, you're searching for something outside of yourself that doesn't, it's not outside of yourself, it's in yourself.
mm,
You are already one, you're whole, we are complete, we are worthy, we are beautiful, perfect beings, as is. Our behaviors, the choices we decide to make with our bodies, with our minds, with our spirit, with our, you know, mouths, that is the thing that, of course, we can choose to improve on. We can choose to make a little bit better. But us, ourselves, as we are, like, we're good. Do you know how much magic it took? Do you know, I don't want to bring out that equation, right? The 10, you know, 10 to the power of 40 or whatever, like that, like 1 trillion parts for us to be born, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's
I
kind of
know
heard
what
that
it's
saying.
a 400 trillion to one.
400 trillion to one. Yeah. So I remember, yeah, 10 to the power 40. Yeah. So 400 trillion to one for us to be born, like in terms of all of the things that had to come together, right? All
Mm,
of the ancestors that we have that had to come together for us to be here.
mm.
Like to then turn around and be like, oh, like, what? What's good about me to love? You know what I mean? Like, why am I perfect? Like, oh my God, like the amount of stuff that had to come together for you to be here. Like,
Yeah.
at least have that gratitude for yourself. If that's like the only thing you can have is, gratitude for your ancestors, gratitude for those around you that kind of keep you sane enough to live in this current motherfucker of a world. Because that's it. Like, that's what I mean to people. It's about, of course, there are traits about me, there are behaviors, there are things that I do that I work on every day to try and remind myself to, how do I want to approach this day, what do I want to learn from this situation, how do I want to shift my mindset and things like that. But that never ever overlaps with my love for myself. That
Mm,
never comes in conflict. And I think when you repair that relationship with yourself, when you can truly look in the mirror, and ultimately, like I do, I look in my mirror and I see myself glowing like I do now. I see this Buddha nature inside that I love. And then it helps me when I look and I speak to others. Like, I see past all of the conditioned shit that I'm supposed to. I don't
mm,
care, if you haven't shaved your legs, or if you're 400 pounds overweight, or,
mm,
if you're less able than another, or, whoever you decide to shag, or
mm.
however you decide to identify, you know, it's, I never see that. I see their love, their Buddha nature inside them, and it is a superpower. Like 100%. This is why I do what I do, because I do have this beautiful superpower. It's a thing that I've decided to do, and I have this thing about around purpose, right? I think ultimately everyone's looking for their purpose. And, I could say this was my purpose, but I also just believe that this is just something that I love to do. I'm passionate to do.
Mm,
I feel really called to do it because I feel like I have a superpower in it. But my purpose has already been completed. My purpose is just being here talking to you, is
mm,
experiencing every day, is trying to find as many moments where I can bring myself back to this moment, because that's really the only time we're living, right? Again, that's a very Buddhist philosophy, right? Being
mm,
in the now, being in the present, not finding yourself living too much in the past, living too much in the future, because
mm,
we know what that already causes us, right?
mm,
And just being here, and the being is the purpose. So
mm,
I'm already living that. And I guess that's why, again, I have the ability to every day wake up and be like, I'm going to choose love. I'm going to choose love for myself, if only for myself today, because my kids are pissing me off, my husband's pissing me off, my friends pissing me off, my family's pissing me off. But I can still look in the mirror and be like, it's all right, baby. We got one more day, another day of being. Let's enjoy it. Let's find the gratitude. Let's find the
mm,
fun and joy. You saw me when we were on holiday, and we were just dancing, and I was in the moment, and you could just feel it. And then we stopped dancing, and we were, like just sitting there, and I looked like I was drunk. And I was just saying to her, I was like, I'm like drunk on joy. I'm so drunk on, and I tried to be. I think, well, isn't it so much more? I feel like I'm gonna get teary, but isn't it so lovely when you can kind of have those moments in life and see life through that lens? And it's
mm.
not always easy to find those moments, because
No.
it's hard to live right now, and it all depends on personal circumstance. And I 100% know I say that with great privilege of having done a lot of work to get myself here. But it really is attainable. And I think when people meet you, when people meet me, when they see it, like, this is, I think, my hope is that I can meet enough people and be with enough people.
Mm,
I can be in my energy and be in the people who I love's energy, because when you see it and you realize it is possible, you start to have that belief in yourself, And with that sometimes sparks your own journey to self-love. So many people, you included, right, who are around me enough. I do say sometimes I am a bit of like an infection. I am like kind of just infect you, and then but every I see it all the time, and it's
I always say it's Tanya's fault. And
yeah,
it's,
it is.
anyone's like, what's this all about? Oh, it's Tanya. It's
It
Tanya's
really is.
fault. Well,
And
we
I
know
tell
that,
people,
right?
I say that. I say just say to people, like if anyone gives you shit and you're enforcing a boundary or you're just be Tanya
It's
made me
Tanya's
feel this.
fault. It's Tanya's fault. But like I've known you what, about 3 years, I think now. And the minute I met you, I loved you. And like genuinely, like 20 minutes, we were
Yeah,
besties, weren't
we
we?
were
Like,
besties.
"Yay." And I just thought, God, and the more I got to know you, I was just like, I've never met anyone like this. Like I've never, like never. And you have massively, like I always have a coach. I have someone that supports me, but you support me as a friend, and you probably have, you and Diana have, the biggest impact on me. You both inspire me so much every day, and but you know this. um I'm not saying anything you haven't heard, but you really helped me to see life differently and see myself differently. And I'm still on a big journey like that. Like I can only hope that I can get to where you are in terms of my level of self-love and being perfect. But I've massively shifted with a lot of things, and being present is something that it has shifted. The needle's shifted quite a lot for me with that. And I think, I don't know, maybe thinking about from a listener's point of view, how where do they start with that, right? Because we both know that getting yourself present is so important. Like, like at the moment, let's be, for honesty and transparency, I've had a shit few days, right? And but I have learned that I need to be. I wrote a poem this morning, and when I was out on my run, and I was thinking, because at the moment, because of like stuff that's going on with Timmy, my tumor, I'm like, I'm what if the brain is doing all this what if, right? And I don't have a lot of control over that, because the brain will do what it's going to do, and we all know thoughts aren't facts, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
brain is catastrophizing, it does that. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to learn to have self-compassion for myself, and that's okay. It's okay to be with this right now. But I am conflicting, so I'm fighting it a little bit, because I know what if is a waste of fucking time. It's imagination of what might happen. Yes, I've been given some information that this could happen, but it isn't happening. So it's my brain. So when I was running and when I was writing this poem, it was like, what is, instead of what if. And it
Beautiful.
is being that what is it now, being in the now. So, and we know the power of that, and that's massively helped me this morning, yesterday, and Monday. And it will continue to help me as I sort of ease my way through this, and I know that. But that's been a journey for me to get to this place of being able to do that, and being aware of what's happening and my thoughts and how I can try and shift. But how do people who have got no concept of that, and you've lived your life like this, where do they start? Where do they start with getting present? Where do they start with getting this self acceptance? How do I know I ain't got loads of time, but I really want to try and people to hear from you about those two bits.
Okay.
And where do they start, really?
Yes. So I just want to acknowledge that you're fucking amazing and I love you so much. And thank you for
Mm.
sharing that, because I know that it is a journey and I feel exactly the same. So as much as I am the pure embodiment, and I take that, I accept it. I, like I receive it. It's That's another beautiful exercise, being open to give freely, openly, and without expectation, which a lot of people hear. But what a lot of people don't hear is you've got to receive openly, freely, and without expectation. Because
Mm.
if you want someone to receive as openly as you give, you need to learn to do it. And it's something that, again, we find difficult because of that worthiness factor of feeling like,
Yeah,
are we deserving? Are we worthy? Like, hello, imposter sit, hello, come and, or angel devil on the shoulder. Or, there's so many analogies, right?
yeah.
But you have to really be received. When someone tells you something, be like, yes, thank you. I
It's
accept
so hard,
that.
isn't
I
it? Like I
receive
was, you know, I I was with Vivian, and Vivian says some really nice things to me, and I always go a bit like, like just like it's like, ooh. because you don't feel deserving of it, or it feels uncomfortable, or if anyone says anything nice to us, I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with this, right? We are a bit like we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, you're
Like,
like, shut up, or whatever, or
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
or you'd be like, oh no, like, but oh, if it's about your hair or if it's about your clothes, oh no, it was like £2 in the charity
Yeah. But
or
you,
discount.
I have to say this, but you are one of those people. If we go, oh, Tad, you look great, or I love your jacket or your dress,
Yeah,
or whatever, you're like, oh, yeah, that. You know, you just fucking
yeah,
lap it up. You're such a great receiver.
yeah, and that's a big exercise. So being in the now, yes, but when just learn to say thank you. And don't learn, and you know, and also try to reduce saying sorry. Like, unless you're an absolute cunt, say sorry, right? But I think we particularly, everyone's always so apologetic. Like, you get a
Yeah.
compliment, oh yeah, yeah, thank you, sorry, or something like that. It's like, what? Or like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I've got a cough, I can't. Like, what? Like, you, why are you sorry you've got a cough? You know, it's that thing. So it's learning to receive, learning to say thank you, and just openly receiving without any, oh yeah, and I just did my hair, or oh yeah, and but I
Yeah.
bought this top and it was on discount. Stop trying to justify why someone, just receive it, right? And that is a big part of, it's really uncomfortable. So it's
Yeah.
doing the really small things that make you uncomfortable. And in terms of being present, it's really about, you know, remembering, like you said, that what is happening now, what am I now,
Mm.
and also remembering that I am statements, like really the only one that you can really say, like, I am love, right? And of course you can say I'm perfect, I'm beautiful, and do these beautiful affirmations that you need to do, but it's more about like the things that we operate in the world as, they're just behaviors, right? So it's
Mhm.
actually learning how to recognize what behaviors that you're doing that aren't being productive for you being in the present. So, you know, how many times of the day are you doing something where actually you're not doing that thing? As you said, you're in your head, you're traveling too far into the future, or you're traveling far in the back, in the past. And I'm a big believer in finding like these daily rituals that you can do, where you can find, you can ground yourself in that present moment. So if you have some kind of morning ritual, you have some kind of evening ritual, those are at least 2 moments of the day where you can find yourself grounding in that moment. And obviously doing things like, obviously I love somatic practice. Like, as a coach, I'm very cognitive, and even with some of the therapy work that I do, um it's very much top down approach, right? About getting your mind right to kind of prepare your
Yeah.
body. And then somatic work that I've been doing is about preparing your body to help that adjust how you kind of, how your relationship with your stories. So I love kind of any work that brings yourself into that moment, and both those exercises can. So whether you do mindset work, or you know, have a coach, or you have someone that's a therapist that can help you pull together things that's going on in your mind, that's great. If you have like exercises that you can do at home, like breath work, like meditation, you know, like just dancing, just jiggling, shaking for two
Yeah.
minutes to your favorite song while you make coffee. In those moments, if you can get into your body, that's actually, I think, the quickest way to get into the present. Or
Right.
again, journaling, doing something with your mind, like journaling, getting yourself present, or reading, you know, being present into a book, and
Mm.
remembering that the important thing isn't the act. Okay, we can choose multitude. If I, you know, you can go into Google now and download 400 different sheets about how to self-care, how to build a morning routine, how to build whatever. Find those things. Yes, if you like to meditate, if you like Sam, I know you get up, you drink your water, you know, you do your meditation, you do a bit of breath work if you can, you go for your run, you get your movement in. So
Mm.
you're in those moments where you're in your body, you can find yourself in the present. That
Mm.
becomes completely redundant if you don't then activate your mind in that moment and remember to call yourself back into this present, call yourself back into your body
Yeah.
while you're doing that act. So if you were running, Sam, you're running, you're in your body. The purpose of that, you know, is exercise, yes, it's to get you in your body, to make you feel good, get all those amazing chemicals, right? To kind of initiate that parasympathetic
Mm.
system, to reduce some of those shitty hormones that we have, right? If you're then going, oh, fucking Timmy's doing this, and what the fuck am I going to do tomorrow? And oh, like, oh, do I really want to like have this in my life, and what's going to happen with this, and
Mm,
oh, why did I fucking say that to Vivian yesterday or whatever? Do you know what I mean? If
mm,
that's what you're doing, if you're ruminating in that, and you're no longer in that moment in your body. So whereas, yes, the physical exercise can be some benefit to your body biologically,
mm,
in terms of for your self love, for your heart, for your spiritual development, that actual self-care practice is all that is. It's like a self-care action. It's not actually giving you any soul care. It's not actually helping you with your development of yourself, because actually you've spent zero time in the present. You've just tortured yourself again. You've just
yeah.
done it whilst running. You might as well have been sitting there having a drink in front of the telly.
Mm,
Not been there. Same with meditation. If you're thinking, someone's told me to meditate, so I'm just going to sit here and just breathe, but then you're telling you all your mind goblins, that meditation has become more or less redundant. Do you know what I mean? So it's understanding the self care practices, but remembering to always bring yourself into that moment.
mm,
So, you know, thinking about the smell of the incense, if you need to focus on like, keeping your eyes open and looking at the candle or looking at the incense as it burns, if you like burning incense, or, remembering when you're running to be looking like ahead of you, looking at the scenery, smelling, as you like to do by the sea, right? Smelling the sea and just
yeah.
finding that gratitude in that moment. If
That
you're
focus,
present,
isn't it?
that
It's that,
focus,
it's the
bringing it.
focus. Yeah. I used to always run with music, and I
Mm,
still do, but part of my run now is I switch it off.
yeah.
But I never used to do that because I realized that I wasn't focused. I wasn't purely present. How could I be? Because the music was taking me here, it was taking me there, and then I'd have all these thoughts. And I used to listen to a lot of podcasts as well, which would take me off on complete tangents.
Mm,
Um, but and it's interesting that at my most difficult times, and I can think of a couple, and whenever I'm going through really difficult times, I run more, I try and exercise more, which is a fucking shit show right now because can't really do that. But ordinarily I would run, walk, and exercise more. And interestingly enough, when I've had my most difficult times and I've run and walked more, I've done it silently. So
mm,
it's like I had this automatic knowing that I had to be in silence. I had to get focused. Whereas
mm,
obviously now I understand it a lot more, but back then I didn't, but I just did it anyway. In between that, I was always running with music, but now I'm very conscious. Like sometimes I'll run completely without music, or sometimes I'll go on a mindful dog walk with Dory, and I won't take my phone and I won't take my headphones. I never would have done that maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So for me, I think the key is about that focus.
yes, very much, very much. And there's a lot at the moment going around mindfulness, and it's amazing. It's one of the key pillars of like Buddhism. It
Mm,
links into meditation, but they can be independent of each other.
yeah,
And it's about exactly having those mindful moments when you are actually present, and that's what I mean. Do a little kind of look at your week, right? This is how anyone forms habits, right? This is kind of like habits 101, but have a look at how you're spending your time every day. Have a look at the stories that you are telling yourself when if you were to write out what you do every day in terms of actions versus where your mind then tends to go. Like, what are you thinking about? Are you constantly ruminating or bitching about yourself or saying shitty things
yeah,
about yourself, and trying to kind of look at your day and be like, fuck, like, how much time do I spend? And then just choose one time, like one thing where you want to anchor yourself in mindfulness, because you can't change everything. So
no.
even for me, it's one thing at a time. The thing I'm working on right now is like cleaning. It's the fact that it was always like, oh, outsource it to a cleaner and, just fuck it off, and I used to
Yeah.
hate it. Like, I hate it, but I had like this moment in the summer where I realized like how much I don't enjoy doing it. However, when with my Buddhist community, we do so much cleaning. We do community cleaning. We clean the temple that we go to. We go out and do volunteer. And when it's done in like a sacred way, in a way in which I'm present and I feel in oneness while doing it, I love it. I get into it. And I was like, how can I bring that practice into my home and practice this? It doesn't have to be forever. It's until such time that I find that gratitude. And again, it's just a practice. So you find whatever practice that is. But
Mm.
before, when I would clean, I'd get the 90s hip hop and R&B on, and be grinding onto the Hoover, like full on, like, let's do this, right? Make a party of it. Now I like turn it all off, fully silent. I smell like the antibacterial spray. I smell like the all-purpose cleaner for the mop, and
Mm.
it's kind of like I smell the dust as I'm hoovering. Just the sound of the hoover, and I'm being, oh my God, is that how loud the hoover is? Not really.
Yeah, yeah.
All of those moments, so that while I'm doing it, I am there in that moment, thinking about, how the cloth feels wet on my hand.
Oh yeah,
All
touch.
these
Yeah.
things that you just would never, your senses
Yeah,
wake.
senses. Yeah.
So I'll do that until such time that I feel like I've really inherited some practice, and then maybe, I can always give it to the cleaner again. But it's about finding those small wins where you can be present in the day and just start with like one at a time. And once you feel like
Yeah.
you practice it, but practice it every day. Practice. When people talk about daily practice, even in Buddhism, it's a big word, practice. That's the purpose. Do something every day. Don't overwhelm yourself by giving yourself 10 things. Like
Mm.
I say this to you and I say this to everyone, right? Have one thing, have just one thing on your to do list every day. Like
Mm.
everyone has to do this, and sometimes I say it's impractical, Tanya. But if you just have the one, I guarantee you'll do the one. And then you might add two or three or four more, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Then you
And it
might,
is, I'm shit. I have I was having this conversation yesterday and I do put a lot on my list. Not necessarily a list, but it's a mental list, I guess. And it's like, and I've got an appointment and I've got this and I've got that. And then there's no space. And this morning I was feeling particularly which is hence why I had the run and stuff like that. But when before I got out of bed, I thought, right, although I obviously had, our conversation booked in and I've got client and stuff like that, I thought, what's the one thing you're going to get done today? And I thought, I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to make sure I make my bed because then I know I've achieved one thing and I like my bed to be made. So
mm,
soon, and I do it every day, to be honest, but I don't know why. It was just the focus of my thoughts this morning because I was just feeling like I said, not so great. And then I made my bed and I was like, right, I've achieved something today. It doesn't matter if you sack everything off and you don't feel capable of doing it and you want to curl up in a ball on the sofa. You have made your bed today.
mm,
And it was just there is that great famous talk about that, isn't it? About making your bed. I think it's the
bed.
Navy SEAL or someone.
Yeah. And
Um,
literally, we were talking about this with my client 2 days ago, and that's exactly what she said. She did the exact same thing. She was like, if I just make my bed today, I am good. And I was like,
yeah,
really? Everything?
yeah. And then hopefully it has a little trickle. Like Dory's already had a walk, so like I'm like I feel good about that because she needs a walk. She loves it, and we both love being at the beach together. And so it's like, oh yeah, I've done two things. And I do put a lot in my diary, and I think you're aware of this that like I keep saying I'm trying not to put anything in my diary for 2023. That doesn't mean I'm going to have an empty life, but I want to make sure that I get the things in that really are important to me because and those are going to go in my diary first, like the things like I want to meditate more. I know that I want space for my exercise, space for my family and my loved ones, and those things have, and I've been thinking about this obviously in the last few days, is they have to go in my diary first. But I know we all need to work and we need to make a living and stuff like that, but all too often that comes first, and then we lose ourselves because we're losing the things that we feel really connected to, that we really need to nourish ourselves. And
Mm,
I know for me to feel nourished, I have to do those self-care bits, like say run, meditate, whatever, but I have to be around my family. Like my family are really, really important to me. And spending time with them is, it nourishes me. And with you guys, and sport is really nourishing to me.
mm,
And so like I'm really conscious, right now is that that's what has to go in my diary first. I have to make space for that stuff because it's part of me being the greatest version of me.
yeah, 100%. I love that. I love that. And the other thing that I think, coming back to your question, the other thing that I do every day, other than just the one thing, and having this kind of daily practice and having the self compassion. This is a
Mm,
big key point, right? Everyone talks about, I mean, you know, you can use these tools, go and do these tools, and, self care tick box and all this stuff. But no one talks about that, like when that doesn't happen, you're
mm,
like, we're supposed to beat ourselves up, which then completely defunks the whole point. The point is,
yeah,
try and do that. That's what I mean. Start really small. Start with like 2 minutes. If you have 2 minutes free to do something, just start your day away, end your day away. And
yeah,
that's enough. Build from there. Start to realize how that feels. But if that doesn't happen, it's to just be like, oh, that didn't happen. Okay.
yeah.
Very much. The day didn't happen. I'll try again tomorrow. I'll have the opportunity tomorrow. And do not beat yourself up. Just have that compassion where you
Mm.
just say, it's all right, my love. Like,
Yeah,
even
and you're so good at that, Tan. You really are, like that self compassion piece. And actually, the first episode of this series, I was talking to Ali Hendry, who's a relationship coach, and she was talking about us having more self compassion.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I realized like I've been quite hard on myself in the last few days, and it was only because someone said it to me that I realized, I've like, oh yeah, I need to be a little bit kinder to myself, like giving myself a hard time of like, well, I should not be feeling like this. I should be okay with this. I should be there. Or the should fuck I was shoulding all over myself.
You were
Like,
shooting all over yourself.
yeah,
I love
exactly.
that's my favorite saying.
It is. It's great, and there's a great book about it. I've got it somewhere. The Crossroads of Should and Must.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
really good book, but it's more about like direction in terms of like if you career direction and purpose.
Mm,
But it's a good book. So if anyone's listening, go grab that book. But um, yeah, self-compassion and like I said, it's not been my greatest thing lately, but it's something that keeps coming up for me and in these conversations and how we all need to just be like, okay, so it's okay to feel a bit shit. It's okay that you didn't get that done. Do you know what I mean? Rather than giving ourselves like I said, for me, it's like, well, why are you making this more than it is? Why are you feeling so shit? Like, come on, sort your shit out. And those kind of crappy conversations that we can have rather than being self-compassionate and going, well, it's okay. Like, this is a process. You just need
yeah,
to move through this. You won't always feel like this. I know from experience that 20 minutes later, I can have a completely different thought and be in a completely different energy. And it's reminding myself and, having that self-compassion.
yeah,
So it's interesting you bring it up because it's just
100%.
come up a lot.
It's so important because I don't think you can do this work without fully understanding that. Like, because you
Mm,
want to embrace the joy, you want to embrace the love, and actually the wisdom that comes through those things um, is through compassion. Because those are like the four immeasurable truths in Buddhism, right? Joy, loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom,
mm,
equanimity, right? It's finding the okayness of feeling all those things and finding all those things in every feeling, in every moment, in every circumstance, finding the joy, finding the love through the pain, through the shit. Like ultimately, I feel like crap. I'm feeling sad. I'm angry.
mm,
Oh, fuck me. What a fucking amazing emotion to feel. It doesn't always feel that way, right? But
yeah.
my body could physically pick up this chair and throw it at you right now.
Yeah.
How wonderful that we have this body to be able to pick up this chair to throw at you, right? It's like having those moments where you see through the emotion and still find the joy and the love. Even when I'm in my deeper steps of my depression, I live with depression, especially
Yeah.
seasonally. I'm like prepping for the fact that the sun is like gonna be out for so little time. I'm like, no, don't go away, son. But I in those moments I find through the tears, I still try to find that love for myself and that joy and the compassion in
Yeah.
that. Again, this is the purpose. I am experiencing yet another thing. How fucking wonderful to be able to experience it. And again, great privilege I say that with, but it is possible to get that way. And that is what my practice is about.
Yeah.
And another way, which is, always take this in, and I always say this, always knowing that trauma is a real thing and everyone experiences differently. So I always want you to be mindful as you do this. If you're listening and you choose to do this practice, there may be things that come up. And
Mm,
please always feel free if things come up. It's my responsibility to be open to those DMs. So if something comes
yeah.
up when you do this, please DM me or get in contact via Sam. But a really important practice to come back into self is body work and mirror work and finding time to look at yourself, particularly if you can look at yourself naked. That can be a process. It can start with your clothes on. I
Mm.
am called the naked coach for a reason. It's about connecting with your naked self, both outside and inside, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's finding time to look at yourself every day in the mirror, even if it's for like 2 minutes. You can just stare into your eyes and just connect. You don't have to go into the affirmations. You can if it helps. You don't have
Mm,
to. I always say, even if you give yourself a little kiss in the mirror, just
yeah.
connect with yourself, start looking at your body, start with one thing, and then if you can start to kind of get unclothed and learning to what your body actually looks like, and then progressing that to actual body work of just finding time to be with your body, like even if that's the form of meditation, and just touching your body,
Mm.
feeling into yourself, because that brings you in the moment, and that will start the stories off. It will start, oh, this is a bit wobbly, or oh, I
Yeah.
don't like this scar, or yeah, and it does. And so sometimes you can't do that by yourself, and you need someone to do that with. So if you have someone, that you can trust, that you love, like a friend or a family member, or even if it's an external person, if it's not me, someone else that can help you do this work. Because I
Mm.
always say the work is more important. It doesn't, I can't serve everyone, right? It's important. Go to somebody who can help you with this.
Yeah.
Um, but just as you start to be with yourself and touch your body, you start to form that connection, and you start to find the things that you need to maybe work on, that maybe are causing you to not be present, that are causing you to ruminate. It's probably stuck somewhere in your body, and as you do the body work, you'll start to identify what stories are coming in and what you need to work on. But again, you really have to be mindful that please take it easy and be gentle with yourself as you do this work, because it's also not something that we're conditioned to know. Like, I talk about masturbation a lot in terms of just self pleasure,
Mm.
rather than what we all think it is, which is rubbing one out, right?
Mm.
Like, that's what people immediately think, and they think,
Yeah.
but for me, it's about self pleasure. It's about the
Yeah.
pleasure of being in your body and with yourself, and that can be just touching yourself.
Absolutely. I'm going to stop you there because do you know what? We need to do we honestly like need to do part two, because that's a whole nother conversation
It
that we
is,
need to
yeah,
have, because we're getting onto the naked body work.
yeah,
Excuse me. It's so crucial to self-love and self-acceptance,
100%.
and your relate, because it's your body is, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, your body is everything.
Yeah,
So like this, I can see this going down a whole nother avenue,
yeah,
but it is such a big part of the greatest love of self.
yeah.
So can we park that body stuff
Of
and do
course we
that in
can.
part two?
Of
Because
course.
I
That
try and
would
keep these
be
episodes to sort of
amazing.
40, 45 minutes. Um, thank you so much. It's
It's my pleasure.
But we will do part two. So I'm going to have to nag you
We
for
can
another
do
date, which
part
I know is
two.
tricky. Um, I normally at the end have a few quick fire questions, but I will save them for the end of part two.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm like, what are these questions? Oh my God.
No, listen, Tan, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Mm,
Thank you just for being an amazing human being. You literally are like a life changer, a lifesaver. And yeah, I just knew that I wanted to do the greatest love, and I wanted you to do it because I just how you love yourself and your body, and you can love yourself, like say, even in the darkest moments. Like, and obviously, I've seen that, and I know what that can be like for you. But still knowing that you can have that self compassion and self acceptance in the dark moments, which a lot of us really struggle with, and maybe we can touch on a little bit more about that when in the second part as well,
yeah.
because I think that's like for me, like I said, experience the last few days, that's when I struggle more. It's like, oh, trying to be compassionate with myself and accept myself, when we're going through the darker bits. It's okay when the light's there, we can
Mm,
maybe do it a little bit easier, but when the dark shows up, which it will, how do we really dig deep, and how do we really do that? And you do it so beautifully, because like everyone, you experience the dark and the light.
yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you
Awesome.
so much. It really was an honor to be here. Yeah,
Hmm.
to finish that sentence, the greatest love of all is the love story you have with yourself. So please go and start it today. Go and start that love story with yourself, because you deserve it. You are worthy. You are a precious being here on this earth with us. And we are really lucky to have you here. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sam. I love
Thank you,
you.
darling.
Me, I love us all.
Thank you.